I'm Carl Azuz for CMN 10. If you don't like hearing me say Fridays are awesome, you're going to get a break. This is our last show of 2017, and we will be back with Jingle Bells on Thursday, January 4th. First story is about a major media business deal in the U.S. Disney plans to buy 21st Century Fox. The deal's significant partly because of its size. These companies are known worldwide, and they're two of the biggest players in Hollywood. Disney owns the Disney Studios, stores, theme parks, and cruise line. It owns TV channels like ESPN, and it has part of the internet streaming service Hulu. Under the Fox umbrella, there are sports networks, the FX networks, National Geographic, hundreds of international channels, and also part of Hulu. And streaming entertainment is a big reason why Disney is spending $52.4 billion on Fox. It wants to expand its content online to better compete with rival companies like Netflix. In fact, Disney is taking its products off Netflix as Disney prepares to launch its own internet streaming service. What's not part of the deal? Fox News Channel, Fox Business Network, and Fox Sports. They'll be separated and formed into a new company. When will all this happen? The deal is expected to take at least a year to go through, if it goes through. It first has to be approved by the U.S. government, which will consider whether the new company would have too much control over the market and what consumers pay. The U.S. Federal Communications Commission voted yesterday to relax the government's rules concerning net neutrality. The vote was 3-2, with 3 Republicans voting to repeal the rules and 2 Democrats voting to keep them in place. The repeal won't take effect immediately. That should happen sometime next year. And what it means is that internet service providers like Comcast and Verizon will no longer be prevented from speeding up or slowing down internet traffic from specific websites or applications. They'll also be allowed to prioritize their own content. But if they do any of this, they'll have to show publicly that they did, and then the government will decide whether it's fair or not. Perspective on whether this is a good or bad thing depends on whom you talk to.
If the internet is a highway, vehicles or content providers can't pay more to use a special fast lane. Think of it this way. All content is created equal in the eyes of the internet provider. That's the basic tenet behind net neutrality. So if the internet is neutral, then the internet providers are treated basically like public utilities. Comcast or AT&T, they couldn't slow down or speed up certain content. But if net neutrality ends, some companies are going to be stuck in that slow lane. The rules that made the net neutral were put in place during the Obama administration.
This set of principles, the idea of net neutrality, has unleashed the power of the internet and given innovators the chance to thrive.
But now, things are going in a different direction. Ajit Pai is now the chairman of the FCC. He's a former lawyer for Verizon.
Entrepreneurs are constantly developing new technologies and services, but too often, they are unable to bring them to market for consumers because outdated rules or regulatory inertia stand in the way.
To him, repealing net neutrality will lead to innovation, that it'll get the government out of micromanaging the internet. The internet providers will have more money, they'll then invest more in infrastructure, and we'll have faster streaming. But while deregulation certainly has earned the praise of the telecommunications industry, on the other side of the coin, you have tech companies and consumer advocacy groups. The open question now, will repeal of net neutrality lead to innovation or to a traffic jam?
10-second trivia. Which of these Smithsonian museums was the first to open? Natural History Museum, Museum of American History, Air and Space Museum, or Museum of the American Indian? Having opened in 1910, the Natural History Museum was the first on this list to be open to the public. Housed under a green dome on the National Mall in Washington, D.C., the Natural History Museum has its own insect collection. Remember the ones you had to collect and pin for science class? This place has 30 million. Today's great big story takes us behind the scenes at the Museum of Natural History, where 99% of its artifacts are actually kept.
We have sound speed.
Sound rolling.
Ready, Kirk? Okay. Roll picture.
The Smithsonian's National Museum of Natural History has over 144 million objects, like this narwhal tusk. My name's Kirk Johnson. I'm in charge of all of them. 99% of the collections are behind the scenes, and these are the people that work with them. This is Carla Dove from the Division of Birds.
Here in the Division of Birds, we have somewhere around 620,000 museum specimens, and that represents about 85% of the diversity of birds in the world. You look at these specimens and you realize that this is where the science is really going to start. We're using our collections to identify birds that collide with airplanes and help us improve aviation safety.
Dr. Bob Robbins, curator of butterflies and moths.
I have been professionally employed as a lepidopterist who works on butterflies for about 35 years. This is the essence of my being, is to know everything about butterflies. There's a whole world out there that, unless you look very closely, you don't see. And it's an interesting world, it's a fascinating world, and it is full of practical value for human beings.
This is Ellen Strong, curator of mollusks.
What I love about this collection is its breadth. We estimate that we may have as many as 20 million specimens. We are preserving a record of past life on this planet, of present life on this planet, and preserving that for the future. I take that responsibility very seriously in providing access and caring for the specimens for posterity.
Dr. Jeff Post, curator of the National Gem and Mineral Collection.
Minerals in this collection go from something that formed maybe in the last few tens of years to others that formed more than 3 billion years ago. We know right now there are more than 5,000 minerals that make up the Earth. And in our collection, we probably have more than half of those. Each one's a little piece of the puzzle. And you try to put all these things together and hopefully eventually understand the big picture of how the Earth works.
And Floyd Shockley, collection manager for entomology.
We have just a little over 35 million specimens in the collection. A third of all insect life on Earth is represented by at least one specimen in our collection. When you look at a collection the size of ours, you're starting to get to a point where you can ask really big questions. The questions related to global climate change, habitat destruction, and you can only answer those big questions if you have a lot of specimens collected over a long period of time from a lot of different species.
To understand the Earth and the living things on the Earth, you need to collect those things and preserve them and study them. And that helps you when you need food or when you have a disease. All that stuff arcs back to the fact that we have samples of the whole planet here, and that's how we understand the planet.
It's very Merry Christmas Island for carcinologists. Those are folks who study crustaceans, and this is part of the annual red crab migration on Christmas Island in the southern Indian Ocean. They come from rainforests all over the island, moving in unison toward the beaches where they release their eggs. If they have to cross a road, the road is closed. And this can disrupt traffic, with tens of millions of crabs doing this every year in fall and winter. They rock out to hits like Rudolph the Red-Crabbed Reindeer, Crabble of the Bells, Rock Crabbin' Around the Christmas Tree, and Here Comes Santa Claus. May not always get home in time for the holidays, but you can't take a sleigh ride when your journey has 10 legs. I'm Crabble Azeus. Thank you for making 2017 our most watched year ever. We wish all of you a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, and we'll look forward to seeing you on January 4th, 2018.